All right, welcome back. We are stepping in and entering the matrix once again. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only Nikolai Bratkovsky. I love giving you the intro, right? I feel like we need like a theme music, almost like pomp and circumstance, like when Macho Man Randy Savage went into the ring, something like that for you. But glad to have you with us once again. And I want to start by referencing I don't know if we would call it a lesson, a quest, a homework assignment. Maybe we could use the term homework assignment that you gave me a couple days ago around reading a specific novel. I'm probably going to butcher the novelist's name, but Paulo Coelho, how would you pronounce it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it just by the name of the book. I don't think
The
anybody.
Alchemist.
Yeah.
And man, I can't remember the last time that I sat for hours, literally 2 days. I just sat and read. So pretty much, business, everything was on the back burner. And I told my girlfriend, I said, I'm just reading. And that's all I did, right? I didn't listen to the audiobook. I just read the actual book. And it definitely shone a light on my own life. I know I texted you little sections that really hammered the point home for me. And so I kind of wanted to start there because I've been reflecting on some of the lessons in that book. And I think the listeners will be thinking about how those lessons might apply to their lives in a lot of ways as well. So the big first question that I had for you is like, okay, how does Matrix speak to us? Right, because in The Alchemist, there was this concept of omens, and I know there's
Good
always
omens.
a lot of symbolism, omens. Like people are like, well, if there's a sign, I'm going to see a sign, or something's going to come along my life, and so it's like, well, functionally, how is Matrix speaking to us? And if Matrix is always speaking to us, what does the language look like so that we can have our ears open to it?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Mitch. Thank you. Where I'll start, there are multiple. I guess that's where my whole answers start. There are multiple layers to that, and there are different layers of interacting with the matrix and the universe. Number one that I have to underline is we exist predominantly in a social matrix. So there is matrix. If we talk about matrix, it's an operating system of algorithm of interacting of everything and anything. So that means how does hydrogen interacts with oxygen, how does water interact with iron, and how do birds interact with other birds. That's matrix. But most of the evolution happens in the social matrix. That's why if we look into Buddhist teachings, one of the saying there, treat every human around as a Buddha. So everyone is a teacher here. So one of the easiest ways, of course, to get the signals is from other humans. The challenge, the reason it actually is the hardest one to implement is because other humans trigger the fuck out of us. So we do not hear the messages. So basically, there are already humans that come into our life and do or say something that deliver the message in an understandable language, actions, and etc. But because a lot of times our ego, mind ego, is so strong, or soul ego or spirit ego, or whichever level that person is at, that we know better. And hence we don't hear those messages. Hence we go to what is described quite a bit in Alchemist, where you read the environment. And if you really read the book, you'll see that the person actually is fully aligned, for example, with the stuff we chatted about in the last episode, the way of warrior and the way of water, where, he sold his, what are they called? His sheep, and moved over, and then all the money got stolen. And he's like, well, clearly the world is offering me this experience, and I'll go into that. That's a way of warrior, where you accept any experience. The difference is, most people learn to accept, subset of people learn to accept harsh experiences, because there's just no way out. But very few people learn to be a warrior in accepting non-harsh experiences where they have options. And that's where their mind and ego kicks in and is like, no, it's going to be my way, because even though this money was stolen, I still have something in my savings account. In that scenario, there was no bank, no savings account. So the guy had to face the reality and go, clean the crystal cups or whatever they were, right, in the store, and that turns him into this successful crystal salesman, and a marketer, right? So coming back to that, the best, of course, is to learn to be open to everything that is happening through other humans around us. Like, for example, we had a chat a while back ago where you had some friction with your girlfriend, right? Mm-hmm. And because we get so triggered, we cannot hear the message, whereas the message is always there. So if we can calm ourselves down and start reflecting, what is this behavior of a person trying to get to me, sooner or later we'll start understanding. And the funniest thing, even if we don't get it right, it forces us to reflect. We'll at least notice something that will already improve, and we'll keep peeling the layers, and we'll ultimately get there. So even if in the first few scenarios we don't get to the core, we'll still go through self-improvement that will take us to the core sooner or later. So even if we're per se making a mistake in reading the omen of through human communication that triggers us, if we just keep asking the questions and looking inwardly, we'll get to the core sooner or later. The reason the second layer is reading the environment that is basically non-social environment. And that one, I'd say in our practice, is the favorite for most of the people who we work with, because a passing car with a specific license plate does not act as a trigger, but a lot of people like reading numbers on anywhere in the world. And everybody, and the interesting thing, for everyone, different numbers mean different things. So I used to read numbers predominantly. The only numbers I really read is like I would lift my phone and see the clock numbers. Mm-hmm. And I would have sometimes a feeling like repeating numbers, understandable. Repeating numbers just for me mean I'm on the right path. And I noticed when I would be going through really challenging situations in life, and it's not like I'm checking the clock. I would randomly pick up the phone, and it would be like 1111, 2222. And when that happens often, to me, it's an indication that like the higher forces are speaking. Just go through this experience. Even though you might not having the best time of your life, keep going. You're going in the right direction. So for me, it was very basic reading of the numbers. Then it got a little bit more detailed and more flavorful, but I never fully relied on that. But it was a pleasant, good omen per se, or affirmation that, okay, I just got to keep going. Like I've seen people read license plates a lot, and different numbers would mean different things for them. And oh, by the way, here's where I was going with the numbers on the clock. There was a time when the way it got more detailed, then I started checking, let's say it would be like 1133. And I was like, what I would do, I would punch in that number in Google, and I would put 1133 angel number, and whatever comes up at the top, that was the insight that I was supposed to receive. And a funny thing, if you punch in the same numbers, the same text in Google one day and a few days later, you can get completely different results because Google algorithm is fluid. So the same number I would punch in, let's say a month later, and the message would be slightly different. So that was my way of reading numbers. I would just punch them in Google, and I would add angel number, and whatever it would tell me, it was like 90% of time I was like, oh, this is what I needed to hear right now.
Yeah, this is the thing of the moment. Like, it's funny that you mentioned that because my girlfriend all the time, and it's comical. And this has been going on for it's I think it's been going on at least a year now. She always picks up the phone and it's always double digits. So 11 11, 13 13, 15, and she'll randomly have like 4 of those in a single day.
Yeah, exactly.
I never get any of them. I have to fucking stare at the phone like I'm waiting, and then we make a joke because it's like 11:10 and I'm waiting, and it's like, oh, see, I was there, right? Of course not, but
Well, so the way it works, a person can choose also the way the environment communicates with them. So if you right now today choose that you want to be communicated that way, you'll notice it will start happening with you. She chose that. She read it because it's very popular among women, but it's also popular in let's call them introductory spiritual teachings to teach about symbolism. And I think, just generally, feminine energy is more predisposed to sensing the unseen better. Hence, they're more predisposed to like stuff like horoscopes and all that stuff because it's more natural to the feminine energy. But at the end of the day, every human has both masculine and feminine. So we have that ability as well to sense all that. So the reason I'm mentioning this, usually women end up with those instruments sooner than men. But as men, we can say, okay, I choose for the my soul, spirit, the environment, the matrix, whatever, to communicate with me through numbers as well. And pick the one that excites you the most. Where I was going with, for example, a good friend of mine and my sister use license plates on cars as they drive. There's specific numbers they see and different numbers mean different things for them. And like they keep telling me, like, oh, I saw 916, 916, 916. That means I'm off path for, let's say, for a friend. I'm not sure if that's the numbers, but like something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just giving you an example. It's like, that means I'm off my path. Like I've made a wrong decision recently. I need to review which decision. And usually the person automatically intuitively knows, oh, here I'm making a wrong decision. So the person pauses and starts reflecting on the right decision. And so that's another example of symbolism. Then another example of symbolism could be through animal world, like different birds show up. I use that a little bit early. Like I would be sitting and out of nowhere, like, I don't know, like an owl lands on my terrace. And usually when some like unique, rarely seen birds land, it was like means like, hey, pay attention. There's something major you got to pay attention to. And then I would literally go and Google the meaning of symbolism of owl, and I'd start reading the first result, and usually there would be an answer there. I'll give you another example. A friend had like all taxi drivers honking at him, like just like, and he was like, what is going on? Like he first thought something was the car and etc., and then had to reflect, and there were insights in that. Or like often a lot of people share the story where in passing they hear people having a conversation and somebody says like a sentence or two that just like shifts their perspective or gives them the answer. So that's another way the social matrix works, where you don't interact with a person directly. Hence, you can hear them because like it's a random person saying something not to you. So there's no ego charge. Because if the same person said exactly the same thing to you, higher chance it would have activated a bunch of programs and defense mechanisms. So you'd be like, whatever, dude, fuck off, right? So that's another way. Like people would be walking through a square and two people are having conversation and they hear a sentence and it's like, yes. So the environment is always speaking that way. And if we go back to Alchemist, I think there are a lot of examples there of of an environment, or the matrix is really creating the path where there's no way to turn left or right. And that usually happens when a person is not listening to omens for long enough. You're left with a choice of no choice, like that example of all money gets stolen and you got to sell crystal, right? Well, but he didn't have to sell crystal. He'd be like, who am I to sell crystal? Fuck this. And like sit there and be victimized, or, like try to beg for money to get across back to Spain, and beg for money to buy one, or go work as a shepherd to earn money to. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So even in those no choice situations, like when the ego kicks in, like, oh, I know better, the best is. And then I think I mentioned that book, was it Michael Zinger Surrender Experiment?
Yeah,
where
that's next on my list.
Yeah, highly recommend reading that. But a lot of people misread the book. They think that surrendering means being inactive and also agreeing with things that are not aligned with universal laws. And what I mean by that, I'm just sitting here and surrendering, and his situation unfolds in Florida, right? And alligator comes out, and that's not his story, but I'm giving an example, and starts chopping, like eating on your leg, right? Oh, I'm just here surrendering. No, protect life. Universal law number one, you protect life, and you start with protecting your own life, right?
Yeah.
So what he means by surrender in the book, and when I read it, I misunderstood it. When I read it, it was one of the first per se spiritual books I read. I misunderstood. I thought I was supposed to become inactive and just surrender to everything. Yes, there is 90% truth to that. It means open up to experiences that Matrix is offering to you, and understand why Matrix is offering those experiences to you. For example, remember we went for a walk here and we bumped into the Yugoslavian journalist, the older guy who likes talking for 5-7 hours. So I already had a 5-hour conversation with him, and I came to translate the book. So I sat in the cafe, started translating the book. I wrote a sentence. He started chatting with me. And then he's like, oh, why don't you move over to my table? I was like, no, I came here to do the work, but the Matrix is offering different experiences. By then, already knew that I had to be open to experience, and he was persistent. So it was like, and I was like refusing, and then I was like, I'll chat with the guy for 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, and I was like, you know what? And while it's unfolding, I'm still resisting. I was like, well, this experience is happening. So there is a reason for that experience. But I cannot understand the reason, but I'm still resisting because I came to this coffee shop to translate the book because we need to publish the book. Yeah. Like we have a book written in Russian and I'm translating it to English, right? And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to surrender. I can, because I'm also chatting, it's hard to be engaged in a conversation and reflect. And then I'm just going to relax. And I sat at his table and the conversation went for 4 hours. The guy was ecstatic because he's like an older guy whose like family lives in, I think, Slovakia or Slovenia now. And because he's a journalist, clearly one of his dominating energies in his soul structure is communication of self-expression. So he needs to use that energy. Yeah. So I surrendered. I had fun learning a lot about the history of Balkans, but beside that, what was unfolding, what Matrix created for me, and this is a little bit more advanced level of, let's call it, energetic understanding of the world or how the Matrix work. The guy was telling me as part of the story how he edited like over, I think, 40, 50 books. And guess what I was planning to do? Was planning to edit, because as part of a translation, I'm editing the Russian version of the book and then translating. Yeah. So what was happening through this person, Matrix was downloading, activating, editing, writing talents in me energetically. So I could have sat there and that's literally the thought. I was already trying for multiple days to start editing and translating the book. And I was like, what I know about editing and publishing books, nothing. We should hire somebody. And there was a resistance within me. So, and I was like, oh, okay. But like, I know it's what I'm supposed to do because it feels aligned, but there is resistance. So I'm like, I'll figure out how to navigate the resistance. And Matrix presents this to be activated in me. Literally, that's what the guy did for his life. He was like one of the top journalists / editors in Yugoslavia. And I almost refused that experience. And because it did not make sense to my rational mind.
Yeah.
So coming back to the surrender, you surrender to what's unfolding, but you surrender to it consciously. And you ask yourself, what is here to learn for me? And if we continue on that story, then we met this guy on the walk with you and your girlfriend, and he started giving the spiel again. And I've been avoiding him because I didn't want to do it. I was like, I got the codes, you know? I was like, but the Matrix kept sending him to me. Like I was walking to meet up. It was funny. I was walking to meet up with you some other day and I bumped into him and he's like, okay, he was already leaving the cafe. Yeah. He's like, okay, let's go sit. I was like, dude, sorry. I'm meeting with a friend and he's like, oh, okay. And he lets me off the hook. So I was like, oh, I'm off the hook, right? So then we bump in together. We sit down, we start chatting, and then you have to leave for your meeting. Yeah. And I was like, I got to figure out how to ditch this guy. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to pretend everybody's saying bye. So we're all saying bye. You leave with Anna. Yep. And I like jet rapidly to this bar. And I thought he'll understand the move. Yeah. He follows me and he goes, excuse me, and he goes, what can I buy you for a drink? And I'm like, oh. And then I was like, and that was Matrix teaching me. And then I was like, you know what? I might as well enjoy and see where it takes me. Yeah. But because in my mind, I came up with other plans and the life was going to unfold. I was planning to chat to the co-owner of the bar and have conversation. But no, that's not happening. And then we end up in this like super interesting, pleasant conversation. There's another woman passing by. She joins the conversation and she was like in the same mode. No, I'm just here for 5 minutes. She's standing. We're sitting, two of us sitting. She's standing for 5, 10, 15, an hour. And then finally this woman from the bar comes and like, why you're not offering a chair to a woman? She's standing. Whereas like we have multiple times, she's saying she's leaving. And so she hadn't left for multiple hours and she finally sat down. And in that moment, for me, the lesson was to truly learn to surrender to what Matrix is offering. And then as the evening came to the end, I realized I got what I was desiring on the subconscious level. What I mean by that, I went out to socialize, but I came up with all these plans, how I'm going to do it and with who I'm going to do it. And so we socialized with you. Then I was planning to socialize with the owner of the bar. But then this was offered and I was resisting this. And then we ended up in this amazing conversation with this woman joining randomly. And we went down so many interesting rabbit holes and we had a blast. And then I was like, well, if I forced it, because then I was observing the owner of the bar, he got super busy. I would have not socialized with him because he needed to run around and manage a bunch of things and would be choppy conversation for a minute here and there. But I was refusing. I went there with that desire Matrix was offering to me, but my mind knew better. So I was like, fuck, I know better. And I was resisting it, trying to run away. And then I had the most spectacular day ever. So that's the surrender where we don't let into our life a lot of things and we make our life automatically harder than it needs to be. And by the way, I learned a bunch of things in that conversation about myself, about the world, and etc. So surrender, the opposite example of surrender. Oh, I'm surrendering here and sitting, and I got 2 emails already. Hey, can you, let's say, coach me on this? But I'm surrendering. Oh yeah, emails coming in. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm on this inaction surrender. No, The matrix is giving you all the signals all the time, like respond to this guy, go help this person.
Yeah.
So that's what the surrender is going into what matrix offers, but it means you still stay very engaged and active.
So I have a quick question about that, because I know how this has sort of shown up in my life, and I'm curious where do we balance the search for or quest for kind of like what will make me happy, right?
Yeah.
Or what, what we might find fun, happy, like this, versus what the matrix presents itself. And I'm just going to use your going out as an example, because I would know there was a friend of mine, often sometimes he'd ask me to go out, and it's like he would want to go to like this pub where it's just beer and cigarettes, and I'm like, this ain't my like, I don't have fun. I get in that environment and I just feel like agitated, like I don't want to be here. It's not my vibe. So often I would just say no. I'm like, no, dude, not going. And then it's like, well, yeah, sometimes maybe there's something that we don't like. Should we consciously just push ourselves to do it because the matrix is offering it up? Or should we actually be like, I know that's not fun. I should go into something that I find enjoyable. How would you see that? How do we view that through the tea leaves?
Yeah, so there are multiple ways to view that. Number one, sooner or later, you'll be offered that experience where you'll have to be at peace being in that bar. And now you're choosing, do you want to learn that lesson today or another day? And you might be already overwhelmed from a week and you just want to ground and enjoy harmony and etc. So, and that's where you want to, I'll give you exactly the same example with the bar, right? Like sometimes I feel like part of me is almost being pulled to the bar, and I'm like, but it's a bar. I'm going to have beer there. Why do I want to go there? It seems like it's so much nicer to be here in nature, or I don't know, to hang out at home. But I feel like I'm being pulled. So like it's almost my legs want to walk there on their own, but my mind is resisting. So in those scenarios, I was like, well, clearly I don't understand the reason. I'm being pulled. I'll just go. And in that scenario, I went, and once again, a bunch of things unfolded where I got very important lessons for me. And there are specific things unfolding, like between other visitors of the bar. Then I got engaged in the conversations and observing, and I was like super fucking triggered. And I needed to observe that trigger because I was not noticing it. And I was like, whoa. So for me, it was like, wow, this is amazing. It's like, and if I didn't go, I'd just like not experience that. And then coming back to, remember we went to a restaurant a few days ago and there was drilling right beside us. The guys, prime, like brunch time Sunday, Montenegrin approach to life. They decide to install railings while the terrace of the restaurant is packed, and they start drilling metal and cement right beside our table. Like, how do you come up first with that timing? I was sitting there.
Well, and I think the listeners should understand they were drilling with, I think the drill bits were at least a foot long, minimum.
Yeah, like 2 feet probably.
2 feet, yeah. So I mean, just imagine nails on a chalkboard times 100. That's pretty much, and loud, like at like 100 120 decibel of that screeching.
And we're the closest table to them.
Yes, and we were the closest table to them. True.
Yeah. So where I'm going with this, that's your smoke, loud bar experience that you can go through learning and being in harmony in any environment, or you can delay that. It's not time for me to learn. There are other things top of mind. So you're like, I don't want to be in that environment. Thank you. And like in my scenario, we already ordered food. We're halfway through the food. And like, I used to be very sensitive to all that. But then when I meditated a lot, I learned to meditate even when people drilling the walls. And I thought I'm basically cleared more or less everything around that. But clearly I have not. There was still that 10% lingering where my first reaction was, I'm going to go talk to the manager. And I was like, no, that's fine. And you're sitting there smiling, super chill, right? And that's a good example for how for every person there is a different lesson. And here the Matrix is delivering lesson for me, and you're like, okay, you're not almost registering it because it's not for you. It's like, okay, that's fine. It's like,
yeah, I mean, it was like,
whereas you saw that
like,
all my
it's
attention
annoying,
went
but
there.
it doesn't bother me. I'm like, yeah. And what was funny, not funny, but I started having that internal conversation, like, oh, what's the lesson here? And for me, it was like funny because it's like I'm watching this play out, and of course, the lesson isn't for me because I'm not triggered by it, but I'm observing it, and I'm like, because it's comical. I mean, you're watching that. There's like none of this makes any conscious sense that you would do this at all right now and do it this loud, this abrasive,
in the busiest time of the restaurant.
and just so the listeners get a sample, it's not like this was some fucking cheap hole in the wall restaurant. This was a nice high end place. So you imagine like everybody, and it's a huge patio. Everybody out there is kind of looking like, what the hell are you guys doing? I mean, you could do that any time of the day, not high noon when lunch is like packed. So it's like, yeah, there's a major lesson there. And it was so obvious.
Yeah. So yeah, basically the idea, coming back to your question about the bar, is that you still have free will to decide, right? If you're really being pulled somewhere and the mind might be resisting, I highly recommend going there, because the mind, like, you'll get that experience. You skip that bar, you'll end up, in another environment where you'll have to face it. Or maybe it's not environment that you'll face it. Maybe that person would have told you something that you needed to hear. And here is an example of symbolism, right? Because you don't get the message. What happens, the Matrix sends the message through the human. And so through the most random human ever. It could be through a close friend that you haven't like either talked to in a while, or you talk every day, and out of nowhere, like, they just start saying things that they're like, oh, this is exactly what I needed to hear. So, and also the way Matrix works, there's basically, the more person is in harmony, the higher vibration they are. That means the more energy travels through that body, through that person. And Matrix and the planet wants as much energy as possible. So basically, the bigger the conductor of energy you are, the higher status you get in Matrix. Because now it wants to support you, because more energy is traveling through you to everything that exists in this world. So we're like pipes of energy. We are the ones also like powering what's unfolding here. So the higher vibration, the more person is in harmony, usually that correlates with higher vibration of a person. And we have a way of measuring vibration. And that means more energy is traveling. So the way Matrix works, the person with higher vibration, lower vibration people act as actors for the higher vibration person, because higher vibration persons' lessons are prioritized because they're conducting more energy. So sometimes what will happen, a person who is like quite a low vibration, or sometimes we call non-participating character, NPC, the whole movie Free Guy, right, or whatever it's called, will act out things for a moment that then they automatically forget. If you ask them to repeat that again, they won't even remember them, because Matrix channeled specific things, a message for a higher vibration person through them for this higher vibration person. So, and they won't even like, and I'm not even an expert on this. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's just, and as if something switches off. So that's another way the world is communicating. And yeah, that's basically, there's so many different ways. The biggest one, in a nutshell, I would recommend is start accepting every human as God. Because literally God is speaking to you every minute through every human. And when we call it, sometimes we call it every person is a karmic teacher, but then it's like, from our upbringing, the word teacher automatically turns on a whole program, I'm not going to listen because I didn't like listening to teachers, at least. So it's easier when we say every person is God, because they are a particle of God. And this whole thing that's unfolding is just God unfolding through many particles. And every person is always trying to help us evolve, to help us grow, be successful, be better in every expression.
Well, so that brings me into the next question, because I think you sort of covered throughout that, like, how do we interpret the meaning of these events? But does every event or every conversation or every single thing that we do have some lesson for us? And if so, do we need to start almost micromanaging, or how do we, is there such thing as having some interaction that doesn't ultimately have some lesson? Or is the entirety of our existence and the things that come into our awareness, all of it all the time, is teaching, and then we just have to see at what point are we tuning the dial in to listen to the lesson or not?
So if we come back to the definition matrix, fifth version of matrix, that's where we're on right now, or let's call it same as like Windows 95, 98, 2000. So same concept, the algorithms of interactions that manage interactions of everything on this planet. Right now it's V5 and we're transitioning to V6. V5, Advanced Evolutionary School. The whole environment to design, to teach you to evolve all the time. So hence, even like people like, let's say, we worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and still work with a lot of entrepreneurs. They come like with all sizes, big businesses, small businesses, and they think they created business to make money. Business is just a different theatrical set to learn, to evolve. So the core function of that theatrical set is evolutionary, not to make money. So there's a lot of misunderstanding of why specific things happen in the world. As an example, a big misunderstanding is, or like, I get job to earn money. Let's say you're not an entrepreneur and it's not a set where I learn. No, it is. Right now we're actually working with someone, and she has, now everybody has this sometime in the office, sometime at home work, hybrid work schedule. And she's minimizing the days in the office because a lot of people are triggering her at the office. And our recommendation to her was, now go to the office as many times as possible, because that's a soft way for you to learn your lessons. And she's avoiding that. And once it clicked for her, she's like, last week, I think she was at the office like 3 times. And now she sees all those interactions that would just trigger the fuck out of her completely differently. She sees them as an opportunity to evolve, to get better, to understand herself better, to understand others better, and etc. So that's one part of the answer, that we're an evolutionary school and intention of everything here is to teach us. But subset of events are not teaching us anything. And the easiest way to distinguish between those two, anywhere where there is emotional charge, we're learning. If there is no emotional charge, but we've noticed somewhere something, it's a high chance there's nothing going on there. So wherever there's hence when we start using symbolism, reading license plates, there's not necessarily emotional charge there. But if there is that, it's still, if we emotionally feel something is the environment is trying to communicate something to us, that's another way of perceiving emotional charge. Then we keep the focus there and we're like, what is being communicated? And we pause and we reflect.
Got it. So from that perspective, then, should we always, whenever something feels bad, or whenever there's something we don't like, we should double down on it then in a sense,
100%.
like
It's
lean
like
into it.
to succeed in this advanced evolutionary school, everything that takes us out of balance, it goes in both positive and negative, because people misperceive this. And I'll give you my personal examples. Let's say one of the energies I was learning to interact with is childish energy, childish behavior. And when anybody behaved around me as a child, either it's a 3-year-old child, at least that was easier for me to accept that, oh, it's a child behaving like a child. But when a 30-year-old man behaved like a child, that would just trigger the fuck out of me. So that's where I really have to go and learn to stay in harmony. So that's, let's call it negative. The positive, when I had a call with someone where the call went amazing in a few different ways, let's say I helped the person and their life just, they clicked into a new gear, I would get ecstatic. Or I chatted with somebody who like clear there's an amazing partnership, and we were just like, kind of remember our first conversation? We chatted,
yeah.
like I was driving somewhere, and then I was planning, I thought we were going to chat for 30, 45 minutes and go on with life. We chatted for multiple hours. I already parked. I ate at the I ordered food. I ate at the restaurant. And then ultimately I had to go because I think I was going to the airport or something like that.
Yeah.
And coming out of that, I would be ecstatic, so ecstatic. There would be so much energy movement that would be unbalanced in the other direction. In that state, I had no clarity. It would be a positive state, but it's almost like stimulated. Like, think of it as like if you take a bunch of ecstasy, you're so stimulated, would you make life changing decision on that state? No. So that would be exactly. So that would be my positive experience without ecstasy, like being on something like that, right?
Yeah.
But I shouldn't be making any decision because I'm completely unbalanced, because I'm like smiling, like almost jumping up as I'm walking, and etc. So we can be like, it can go both ways. And that means in both scenarios, we have something to learn, and we want to pause and reflect. Why am I don't know, angry? Why am I overly excited? Most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, it would be a low vibration feelings and emotions. So hence, most of the time, we think it's only that we should focus on. And it's okay. I would rather take care of the 90%, because when I feel ecstatic and unbalanced ecstatic, it's fine. I'll enjoy that for an hour or two. Then it gets to a point where like, okay, this is now not serving me either, and you'll take care of that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is funny too, and it was really interesting. I know I was thinking about that. I think I had mentioned the idea of it to my girlfriend in the last month or so, because like if we take that first phone call that we had, right? It was fascinating because I think I even told you on the phone. It was like Jesus. It's like I feel like we've known each other for like 20 years, and we just fucking had a call, and it's like, here's my whole life. I'll tell you everything. Like,
Yeah.
and I was curious what it is about the Matrix, because I've had, for example, and I'm sure you've had something similar. Like, you can meet some people, and it's like, you're like your acquaintances, and it's you just never feel like there's always there's like levels of friendship, and it's like as hard as you try, it's like you can't seem to necessarily get a closer or better relationship with certain people, and with others it's like this effortless thing. And so with that kind of stuff, what is the Matrix trying to show us with that, like when that happens?
Yeah. So basically, what's unfolding in those relationships is coming back to the construct of the fact that we're not just this body, we're soul and spirit. And when we incarnate into this body to go through evolutionary experiences, souls make a lot of contracts with other souls to help each other. And I'll refer back again to Michael Porter, The Journey of Souls. I think he touches on a bit on that, and the cartoon Soul, and etc. And that reaction is usually there is some kind of energetic contract. And universal law number 5, all the contracts have to be fulfilled. This is one type of the contract that has to be fulfilled. So the matrix create a set of it. Like, it is impossible for me to meet you in a rational way. You live in Prague. I've been to Prague once for 2-3 days, and et cetera, et cetera. Our path never crossed. Completely different industries. There's no rational way for us to become friends, right? So the matrix will create event once both parties are ready for whatever experience they have to go through to bring them together. That's, by the way, how most of the romantic relationships work. And people misunderstand the concept of love. And on that note, once I saw what was unfolding energetically, I realized I've never experienced true love. Because most time what people label as love is a energetic gravity of a contract or karma that has to be fulfilled. If it's contract, people feel attracted. They cannot explain why they're attracted, and they call it love. The strong attraction comes when it's karmic contract, or there is karma, meaning that there are a few scenarios there. One scenario, those souls incarnated before in the past, and souls do incarnate in groups. So high chance our souls incarnated before in the past, and we helped each other evolve. But a lot of times things misunderstood, and one kills the other. That creates karma. So there is a strong karmic attraction, and I've seen multiple of those in me. Like, basically, there was a multiple relationship where I was just paying off the karma, or the other person was paying off the karma. And we brought together in the first months or 2 or 3, there's this, we're in love. And then everything just shit hits the fan. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? But everybody has this mental model that they have to make it work. In reality, what everybody should do is reflect, why am I experiencing this? What I should learn from this. There's never working on a relationship. There's only working on self. There's no such, it's a misunderstanding that somebody can work on a relationship. It's basically what two individual people put into a relationship as an egregor. It's an energetic structure between two people that they've co-created. And until they clear some kind of energy within them, that energy will always be in that joint energetic structure. So working on it is same as trying to make the mirror change what it's showing. So both parties in a relationship should turn the attention back inwardly and resolve things within them that is triggering them in a relationship, and only then it will start disappearing in a relationship. One thing, though, I observe often, there's only one person willing to work in a relationship on themselves. So they'll do the work on themselves as they've learned all the evolutionary lessons. Then the relationship ends. Even if they try to keep it, the matrix will create events to keep it, because the person who learned the lessons now does not continue evolving in that relationship, and they need to move on. Otherwise, they start degrading. They're stuck. So then all types of events start happening. A person finds a job in another place, or they start fighting so much that is just insufferable. There are many different ways. And this is another example of reading the symbolism or omens. If something coming to an end, let it come to completion and release it. It's interesting. There's another person who we work with, and we've been discussing her, her moving from Canada, and she's like, she really desires to move from Canada, but she has kids, and there are a few other things unfolding, and she just like, she is very intuitive, and she felt that is the right thing, but because the other things that are unfolding, she could not make that call or decision. Then one of the calls, she's like, oh yeah, and they're moving homeless shelter all the way from one place to 400 meters away from her house, and her house is in a very high-end neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it seems like just another symbol that you might want to start packing up and go. And finally, a week ago, she messages me, is like, we're moving. And she's like super excited, and that she made the call, and she basically did all the necessary things in life that were challenging to make this move a reality. Like, she had all the unpleasant conversations, and the list goes on. I'll pause here.
Yeah. No. You just had me reflecting on, even, from my current relationship to tons of previous relationships, because I can see, looking backwards, my God, there were just so many lessons, and certain things needed to dissolve, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to progress to where I was going. And those relationships would have kept me in my previous job, or kept me in my previous place of living, or all these different things where Matrix was like, no, like, let's go. You need to keep moving forward.
Yeah,
So
and
it's funny just to look at that stuff.
that's where I think it's critical. Omens or signs or symbols or communications from the world, universe, matrix are not only about starting something new, it's also about completing experiences, closing the doors. I find a lot of people have trouble closing the doors because it's a human nature to be attached to something, to the career, to the job, to a place where they live, to a partner, to a pet, and the list goes on.
Well, yeah, the other thing too, like, if I use my my former attempt at obtaining a green card, right? Which, yeah, I won't go into all the sordid details, but it was, we might as well make a Hollywood story out of it at some point. I mean, it was so fantastically bad, and everything that could go wrong did. And it's reflecting back, I'm like, why did I keep trying? But I think there are these programs, and I'd like you to talk about this a little bit, where, whether it is society or whom the program is coming from, I'm not sure, but we are ingrained with this idea, like, never give up. Like, it's in all the movies, right? You see the guy, he's pushing, and finally he perseveres. And so you think, okay, they deny the first thing, it's fantastically bad, but let's keep grinding. And then the second one is like, nope, let's keep going, and then lose all this money. No, let's keep going. And ultimately, it never worked. Like, I could have saved myself
Tens of
50
thousands of
grand.
dollars.
I could have saved myself massive levels of stress. I could have saved myself. The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And yet, that internal drive to, I'm just gonna, if I just stay with it, it'll eventually work, does seem flawed. So, kind of, what's going on there? If you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we got to look at it at a structural or fundamental level. What you're describing a subpersonality of overachiever. And a lot of movies, teachings, and etc. ingrained a subpersonality. And what subpersonality is literally what it says. It's a personality within a personality that is fake, and it takes energy because it wants to exist. It's like, and it's interesting. I have
almost like an egregor, sort of,
but it's in your energetic structure. But it's basically you. It's expression of you, and every human is. Where I was going was this: I have a colleague who specializes in subpersonalities, and it's funny. Originally, he was a detective in a Russian police, so he changed from finding the enemies in external world to finding the so-called enemies within people, or within himself as well. So subpersonality, in a sense, is an enemy, but we should not judge them and treat them as an enemy because it's still us. We, by our decisions, through our free will, we've developed those subpersonalities within us. And there is anywhere from 5 to 30 subpersonalities within a person. And they exist there for different reasons. Some of them form like because of karma. Some of them form like the list goes on. And the strongest ones are based on karma. And karma is, once again, is just inharmonious behavior that or inability to harmoniously interact with specific type of energy. In my scenario, I give an example. I didn't know how to interact with childish energy. Hence, I would get angry and I would either avoid it or get angry and get into conflicts and etc. So the coming back to subpersonality, so it's another fake person living within the persons that take in your energy. And the overachiever subpersonality is super popular, exists almost within anyone and everyone who tried to achieve something in this world by following all these books, instructions, watching Hollywood movies, and etc. And where I'm going with this, these subpersonalities literally take over and start running people's life in depending when they get activated, and different things. There are different switches that activate them, right? And ultimately, where the person wants to get to is live in alignment with their archetypes. And archetypes are based on the core energies that are the dominating energies in the energetic mix of the soul. And what I mean by that, your dominating energies, right? For you, it's wisdom and love. There are 8 energies. To simplify things, soul is just a cocktail of energies. The same as saying we have vodka, tequila, whiskey, and whatever, right? If we're making a cocktail, same concept with the soul. It's just mix of energies, and every soul has a unique mix of energies. And life becomes spectacular, and all those subpersonalities start dissipating when we align with our dominating energies. Because basically, think about it this way: if you have a lot of specific energy, if you have a lot of that fuel, and you choose to use different type of fuel, will you be successful? No, because you don't have that energy. So when you use the energy that you have a lot of, you automatically become happy and successful in this life. What the current version of culture or civilization has created is this notion that by copying others we succeed, but they miss that part that a person who has strength and willpower will achieve everything by powering through, or grinding away and etc. But you don't have that energy. You have very little of that energy. So when you start copying that behavior, you're creating a subpersonality that is not you. It's like you've created a structure within a structure, pretending you're someone else, and it's draining the rest of your energy, and you're not succeeding because it's not your energy. So you're running you should be running on 98 octane, and you're trying to run on diesel, and the engine is just chewing up and not going anywhere and ultimately breaks. So that's basically where this whole thing of power through comes from. It's just a culture, and there is a grander reason for this to exist. The grander reason is when you get majority of population living somebody else's life, so basically living in their subpersonalities rather than archetypes, they become weak. Hence, they become easier to manipulate, manage, control, and the list goes on. So it just weakens. It takes you further away from sovereignty. And the less sovereignty there is, the easier it is to do specific type of things with the population.
And lastly, because I think it would be good just to have a definition, because I really like your definition of it, just in terms of where we're moving forward with the sixth version of Matrix. What is sovereignty according to the Matrix or according to Nikolai? What does that look like, and how will people know that they've achieved it, or what are the metrics that they can move forward towards to get that achievement?
So I can describe sovereignty at multiple levels. And if we start at the most basic rudimentary level, can you, as this body, survive in this world on your own? Can you like go figure out how to plant food, eat, have your own food supply, and have shelter over your head? That is basically, let's call it physical sovereignty. But what's interesting, some people start there and put all the value there, and it's only sometimes it's not even sometimes it's far away from enough. And what I mean by that, the true sovereignty that will automatically take you to that state is when you achieve the inner state of harmony. And what I mean by that, no matter the type of energy that is thrown at you, and when I say the energy that is thrown at you, no type of experience, a person, event, or whatever that comes up in your life, you stay in a state of harmony. That is a true sovereignty, because in that state, the person realizes they have everything that they need in life. Their life is spectacular. They're happy. Nothing can take them out of balance. They can survive no matter what. And as a result of that state, the person desires to structure their life in a way that is sovereign. Then the person starts desiring to own their land, to grow their own food, to have their own shelter, to be independent of the systems. But it doesn't mean rejecting the systems. There's no need to reject the comfort that the systems offer. However, 99.9% of population exists in a very strong, toxic codependence with the systems. If you tell an average person right now, I'm going to take away your apartment and Uber delivery for food, they're going to lose their shit. They're going to freak out. They're going to be so lost, they won't be able to survive for a day. And so what I mean by that, we do not reject any expression of the world. And I happily use AI as an instrument. By in no way I become dependent on that. Meaning that as soon as there is some kind of dependence that's formed that undermines my sovereignty, you lost your sovereignty. Yeah. If you're like, okay, even if this tool disappears or this instrument disappears, I'll be perfectly happy and fine, and I'll just do what I do in a different way. If internet disappears, we'll publish our knowledge on printed paper the way they did it, I don't know, a few centuries ago, right? Or even not even centuries ago, yeah. A few dozen years ago. And so that's ultimately the sovereignty, where you have achieved such an inner state of harmony that you will survive and prosper in any environment, in any type of events, in anywhere, basically. Because it's interesting. It comes back to what I mentioned. When you're in that state of harmony, you're like, oh, the world is serving me lemons. I'll make lemonade. I'll be in the lemonade business. Oh, the world took away my house. Oh, that's probably a sign I should move to a different place. I move to a different place. I start new life. Like coming back, if we start wrapping up with Alchemist, he became even more successful than herding sheep, selling crystal. Would he ever be imagined that he could be so amazing at selling crystal? He probably didn't even know that crystal as a form existed, and he lived in a world that was limited by his perception of sheep and herding sheep and walking around different towns and villages. That's it. But yeah, for us, for evolution,
his whole impetus for even doing that was based on being stolen from and having no money.
Yeah. So, and that's when we are achieve that state of harmony, it becomes super easy to start seeing the world for what it is. And where I'm going with this, only recently I started realizing, when somebody says people live in the world of illusion,
Mm-hmm.
the illusion is created by ourselves, by our own programs, desires, subpersonalities, and etc. When Matrix is presenting something to us and we're like, nope, we see it differently, we want it differently. That is the illusion that we've stepped in. The Matrix is already presenting an easy path to us, but we're rejecting it. So we're not truly reading what is shown to us because we're so obsessed with the way we want it. So we automatically live in alternate reality because we're so attached to the way at some point we've imagined it, or we saw it on Instagram or in Hollywood movie. Nope, that's how it's going to be. In this scenario, it has to be that way. And you get there and you realize, wow, that's not even the way I wanted it. It just, I attached to some kind of image. And a human is ultimately, or what is personality or identity is combination of bunch of these images or structures that we're trying to live by while missing the whole life because we're actually not looking what is presented to us, because we know better, and we're stuck in that. When we start releasing that, everything is just smooth and easy and everything happens for us. And that's another, this like spiritual statement, oh, everything happens for you. The only way to truly be able to realize that is when you stop forcing life, when you stop living those illusions, when you actually open to things like, and we've given many examples, like me sitting down and having beer with this Yugoslavian journalist, right? And then realizing, wow, that's what I desired and that's what I received. And I was like, well, but I want a different way. And yeah.
Yeah. So if we're obviously looking at everything through a filter of some kind, right?
That's exactly what it is. It's a prism that has a fracture in it. So when the light shines through it, it gets distorted.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering what you called that particular flavor of filter that we're generally seeing the world through.
So that filter is just combination of a lot of things. One, already mentioned karma. Two, our upbringing, which is basically bunch of mental constructs. Let's say to earn one mental construct, to earn money, you have to work hard. Not true. Majority of people that I know who are successful, when you actually look under the covers and truly chat with them and get to know deeply, all of them saying the same things. It's like you can watch even interviews of Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs and etc. All of them say the same thing. Oh, somehow the stars aligned. And what they're saying is like, I was willing to open up to experiences that were presented to me. And by the way, that's also to tie in Michael Zinger's story from Surrender Experiment. He built $1 billion company, the first electronic medical records company, by literally surrendering to what Matrix was offering to him. And when you chat to people, they're just, to those financially successful people, they intuitively followed the good omens. It's all that intuition or being open and going into where other people would not be willing to go because it's scary. Wow, I'm changing my life. Wow, like I have to move now or whatever, right? And ties in nicely to Alchemist, right? He could have herded sheep forever and never ever experienced that. So learning, if you would learn one thing, is like really openly going into any experience, no matter how bad it could be or good it could be perceived. Well, it's easy to go to a good one, but it might be like people perceive as like, whoa, like I'm losing everything in my life. But you haven't lived fully to that experience to evaluate that. For example, in 2019, when I was having bad panic attacks, in a moment, I thought that was the worst thing that happened with me, because I was married. My company was growing like crazy. Like basically, I got everything and I wanted. And when I got everything that I wanted, I broke. right? And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm supposed to be enjoying all of this. And I'm like, it's the opposite of that. But then when I look back, I was like, that's the best thing that ever happened to me, those panic attacks. I would have been stuck building this company that I'm like not fully enjoying building, but it's growing and I'm like forcing it. I would have been stuck in a marriage that was good marriage, but it was not like inspiring. It was not, it was not taking me nor her to a places we wanted to go. Let's put it that way. So it was like, it was win-win for a time being, but then it started becoming like flat or almost an anchor. So that, and I was getting the messages before panic attacks happening, but I didn't know how to read the good omens or bad omens for the sake of it, right? And it had to get so rough that finally it stopped me in the track. And I was like, okay, I'm going to reevaluate and I'm going to become honest with myself. And being honest with self is the hardest. That's what everybody has to learn. Be like objectively honest with themselves. Do I actually like this job for example? Like, and there's a very easy example of that. When I wake up every Monday, am I excited to go do what I do? If the answer is not fuck yes, then the answer, if it's maybe, then it's definite no. It has to be fuck yes or everything is no. But of course there is nuance. You might ask, do I enjoy this job? And it's like, fuck, I really enjoy what I'm doing, but I'm not enjoying the context that I'm doing it. Okay, change the context. Keep doing what you're doing. Or like, so honesty will get us to that, to be able to start seeing the signs and respond to those signs. And surrender doesn't mean you're like sit in the environment you don't enjoy. No, surrender is you accept where you are right now, what is being offered to you. And from there, you act to get to the place where that your happiness is.
Yeah. Well, I think that gives everybody a more practical way to, quote unquote, read the tea leaves. I know even looking back at what we've discussed over these last 5 or 6 episodes, it does seem to me that we're coming back to the same thing where it's like, okay, look, like you said, like be honest, look objectively at yourself. What is making me happy? If that is, then this is a good direction. If it's not, well, then we need to have the courage to say, well, I need to change something and start being aware of what might that be, right? Do I need to sell my flock of sheep like the Alchemist and jump on a boat and go across the world, or what?
Well, the other option to wait for the universe to put a homeless shelter right beside you and force you out of your environment, or force you out of your job, or force you out of your relationship. That's literally the other option when we're not reading the science. So it will happen, but you have a choice of how it will happen. Do you do it on your terms or not on your terms? And, like the more we can really just pause and stop living in this rat race of imaginary goals and be like, okay, do I really need to buy a third car? Probably not. Okay, skip that. Am I really happy living in this city? Yeah, I enjoy living here. Like, okay, keep living here. Okay, do I really enjoy hanging out with the people I surround myself with? Nah, it's the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, so maybe I stop. And once you stop, new type of people start coming into your surrounding. And also, there's the reason it's so important to close old events is because we support, same as there is grand matrix, there is an individual matrix. We support our individual matrix with our own energy. And our own energy can afford only so much stuff in our individual matrix. So if we have 30 useless relationships that are not making us happy, for us to get relationships that make us happy, we need to release a bunch because all those relationships are supported with that energy. It's like, and once we start closing the doors, new people start coming in. And then some people are surprised who haven't understood this pattern. Like we have to create space. We have to remove old to create space for new to come in. So that's and coming back to that, we choose how we close the doors, how we end experiences, and how we start experiences by being more present and observing. And the easiest one, I'll come back to the Rumi quote, silence is the language of gods, or God, is the more space we give ourselves to just walk in the park, meditate, just chill, like drink a coffee or a beer at a patio and reflect, the higher chances we will notice the omens or the signs that are subtle. When we're on a treadmill or fucking running somewhere like chicken without our head, the sign has to be loud and clear. We got to get smacked or like, or stopped in our tracks and etc. When we're calm and move through life in a conscious, observant way, then we notice even smaller signs. And when we notice those signs, is like, oh, like my neighbor's constantly renovating. Maybe I should start thinking of moving. I'm open to moving. Matrix, universe, world, show me where I should move. Then I don't know, the videos on YouTube about Egypt start coming up, or a job pops up that's in a town nearby, not even in a different country. And you're like, oh, interesting. Let me check out this job, or let me double click on these videos about Egypt. Oh, wow, I never knew I wanted to live in Egypt. Okay. And that's how it can be experienced in a more smooth and effortless way. But for that, we need more space to notice that.
And on that note, I'm going to take some space with a nice coffee.
Awesome. Likewise.
All right. Well, that was fabulous. I'm looking forward to going through. It's so funny. Again, I have a whole list of questions and notes, and we barely scratched the surface. So I know where we're going next week.
Awesome. Till next week then.
Till next week.